The spoon made a small clink sound against the metal bowl. It was the only noise in the room other than the low, steady hum of the Iron Mule's engine. I held the spoon out. Steam rose from the broth. It wasn't much, just rehydrated protein and some synthetic vegetables, but it was hot. "Open up," I said. My voice sounded too loud in the small medical bay. Too rough. The girl on the biobed didn't move. She couldn't. Her name was Elara. At least that's what the manifest said on the slave crate I had pulled her out of. She had blue skin, pale as moonlight, and long, pointed ears that drooped with exhaustion. She looked fragile. Like if I touched her too hard with my armored gauntlets, she would shatter into 1,000 pieces. Her eyes were open, though. They were a deep violet color, and they were filled with shame. I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice was dry, like dead leaves. "You should not be doing this. It is beneath a warrior of your stature." I didn't lower the spoon. "Eating isn't beneath anyone. Starving is for fools. Now eat." She hesitated, then opened her mouth slightly. I fed her, gently. I'm a big man. I've spent 20 years fighting in the Outer Rim Wars. My hands are scarred. They know how to hold a rifle, how to fix a thruster, and how to break a man's jaw. But feeding a paralyzed woman? That takes a different kind of steady hand. She swallowed with difficulty. A drop of broth ran down her chin. Before she could apologize again, I wiped it away with a cloth. "My legs," she said, tears forming in the corners of her violet eyes. "I cannot feel them, Ronin. I have been trying for hours, since you pulled me from that wreckage. I push, and I push with my mind, but there is nothing. It is like they are dead meat attached to my body." I set the bowl down on the metal tray. I looked at her, really looked at her. "They aren't dead," I said, "and neither are you." "I am useless," she cried out, the emotion finally breaking through her exhaustion. "Look at me. I was sold as cargo, damaged cargo. The slavers threw me in the bottom of the hold because I couldn't walk to the auction block. You wasted your fuel saving me. You should have left me to drift in the dark." I stood up. My silver armor scraped against the edge of the bed. I leaned over her, blocking out the harsh ceiling lights. "Listen to me," I growled. "On this ship we don't use words like useless. I found you. I took you in. That makes you my responsibility. And I don't abandon my responsibilities." She looked away, ashamed of her own tears. It's a strange thing, seeing someone completely vulnerable. Most people in this galaxy would take advantage of it. They would see a paralyzed alien girl and see a victim, or a prophet. But looking at her, I didn't see a victim. I saw a survivor. She had survived the crash. She had survived the cold of space in a leaking crate. She was stronger than she knew. You know, there is an old saying we used to have in the military. A man is judged not by how he treats his superiors, but how he treats the broken. If you've ever had to care for a sick loved one, if you've ever had to be the strength for someone else when they had none, you know exactly what I'm talking about. "I need to check your spine," I said, keeping my voice professional. "The autodoc on this ship is old. It's essentially a glorified first aid kit. It says your nerves are severed, but it's been wrong before." "It does not matter," Elara whispered. "I am broken. I'll decide what's broken," I said. I moved to the side of the bed. I had to turn her over. It was a delicate process. Her body was limp, heavy in that specific way that paralyzed bodies are. I placed my hands on her shoulders and hips. Her blue skin was cold to the touch. As I turned her, I saw the scars. They ran down her back. Ugly, jagged marks. They weren't from the crash. These were old. Someone had hurt her. Long before the slavers got her. I felt a cold anger rising in my chest. It's that feeling you get when you see injustice written on someone's skin. I clenched my jaw. "Who did this to you?" I asked. It is the price of failure," she mumbled into the pillow. "Where I come from, imperfection is not tolerated. My father, he wanted a perfect daughter. When I fell ill as a child, When my legs began to weaken, he tried to fix me. With a knife? I asked, my voice dangerously low. With experimental surgeries, unauthorized tech. He carved into my spine trying to force the nerves to work. He said he would rather have a dead daughter than a crippled one. I gently turned her back over and pulled the sheet up to her neck. Your father was a fool, I said, and a coward. Elara looked at me with wide eyes. He was a king, Ronin. A powerful man. A man who hurts his child is no king, I said. He's nothing. I picked up the bowl again. Finish the soup, I'm docking at Station Omega-4 in 2 hours. There's a doctor there, an old contact of mine, Doc Varys. Elara's face paled. A doctor? No. Please. No doctors. They will only finish what my father started. They will see a cripple and they will want to harvest my organs for credits. Varys is a slimeball, I admitted. He loves money more than his own mother. But he's the best neurosurgeon in this sector, and he owes me a favor, a big one. I have no money to pay him, she said. And I have nothing to offer you, Ronin. Why are you doing this? I looked at the orange stripe painted on my chest plate. It was faded now, scratched by shrapnel and time. But it still meant something. Because I can, I said. 2 hours later, the Iron Mule locked onto the docking clamps of Station Omega-4. The station was a rust bucket floating in the middle of nowhere, a haven for smugglers, bounty hunters, and people who didn't want to be found. I carried Elara in my arms. She was light, too light. She buried her face in my chest plate, trying to hide from the prying eyes of the station crowd. People stared. Of course they stared. A massive armored mercenary carrying a frail, blue-skinned alien woman. I heard whispers. I saw the dirty looks. Is she for sale? A rough voice called out from the shadows. A weak scavenger with one eye. I didn't stop walking. I just turned my head and gave him a look. The kind of look that says, say one more word and you'll be eating through a straw for the rest of your life. The scavenger shut his mouth and stepped back into the shadows. Ignore them, I told Elara. I could feel her trembling against me. Everyone looks at me with disgust, she whispered. They're not looking at you, I said. They're looking at me, and they're wondering if I'm crazy enough to kill them. The answer is yes. We reached Varys's clinic at the end of a long, dripping corridor. The sign above the door flickered, Medic L, Parts and Service. I kicked the door open. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and stale calf. Doc Varys was behind the counter, counting a stack of credit chips. He was a thin man, balding, with nervous eyes and shaky hands. He looked up annoyed. Then he saw me. Ronin. He shoved the credits into a drawer. I told you I don't buy salvage anymore. The market is dry. I'm not selling, I said, walking past him toward the examination room. I need a consult. Varys scrambled out from behind the counter. Hey, you can't just walk in there. I have appointments. I have protocols. You have an empty waiting room and a debt to pay, I said, laying Elara down on the pristine white examination table. Varys stopped. He looked at Elara. His lip curled in a sneer. What is this? He asked, gesturing at her with a limp hand. Found a stray pet, Ronin? She looks half dead. She's paralyzed, I said, ignoring his tone. Spinal trauma. Old scarring. I want you to scan her. See if anything can be done. Varys sighed, rubbing his temples. Ronin, look at her. She's... what? Elven species? Blue variant? These types are fragile. If the spine is severed, it's over. Buy her a hovering chair and be done with it. Scan her, I commanded. My hand drifted toward the heavy pistol on my hip. Just an inch. Varys saw the movement. He swallowed hard. Fine, fine. But this clears the debt, you hear me? After this, we're even. He grabbed a medical scanner, a handheld device with blinking lights, and walked over to Elara. Elara flinched as he approached. She looked at me, panic in her eyes. I nodded at her. It's okay, I'm here. Varys ran the scanner over her legs. Nothing. The machine gave a dull buzz. Dead nerves, Varys muttered. Muscle atrophy. Typical. He moved the scanner up to her waist. Then her lower back. Scar tissue is thick, he noted, sounding bored. Whoever worked on her was a butcher. Looks like they tried to fuse the vertebrae with... Huh. He stopped. The scanner made a different sound, a high-pitched ping. Varys frowned. He tapped the device. That's weird. What? I asked, stepping closer. I'm getting interference, Varys said. Something in her bone marrow. Or maybe the nervous system itself. He moved the scanner up to her neck, right to the base of her skull. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered. The scanner let out a loud screeching noise. Varys dropped it. Damn it, he yelled, shaking his hand. It shocked me, Elara gasped. I am sorry. I didn't mean to. What did you do? Varys snapped at her, picking up his scanner. This is precision equipment, you little... Watch your mouth, Varys, I warned. Varys looked at the scanner's screen. His annoyance turned to confusion, then, slowly, to something else. Ronin, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Look at these readings. I looked at the small screen. I didn't understand the medical charts, but I understood the numbers. They were spiking. Red lines going off the chart. What am I looking at? I asked. Bioelectric energy, Varys whispered. Normal humanoid output is around 10 to 15 units. This is reading over 5,000. He looked at Elara. Really looked at her this time. Not as trash, but as a mystery. She's not just paralyzed, Varys said, sweat forming on his forehead. Her body, it isn't broken, Ronin, it's overloaded. Overloaded? Elara asked, her voice small. Your nervous system, Varys explained, typing furiously on a console near the wall. It's acting like a conductor for a massive amount of energy. If you tried to walk, if you tried to send a signal to your legs right now, the energy surge would burn your nerves to ash. The paralysis, again, it's a defense mechanism. Your body shut down your legs to save your heart. Save my heart from what? Elara asked. Varys turned a large monitor toward us. It showed a skeletal render of Elara, but inside her spine, glowing with a pulsing golden light, was something that looked like liquid fire. From this, Varys said. He looked at me, and for the first time in 20 years, I saw fear in his eyes. Ronin, where did you find her? Varys asked. In a crate, I said. Why? Because. Varys swallowed, taking a step back from the table. This genetic marker, this energy signature, it hasn't been seen in the galaxy for 300 years. This isn't a defect. It's a royal bloodline. The Aethelgard Ancients. I froze. The Aethelgard. The myths said they could control technology with their minds. That they built the jump gates. That they were extinct. If she is one of them... Varys's greedy eyes darted to the door, then back to Elara. Do you know what the Federation would pay for a specimen like this? Living or dead, I stepped between Varys and Elara. My hand rested fully on my gun now. She's not a specimen, Doc, I said coldly. She's my passenger. Varys licked his lips. Ronin, be reasonable. We could split it. 50-50. We turn her in to the Science Directorate. They'll fix her legs, sure, they'll study her, she'll live in luxury, and we'll never have to work again. No, Elara cried out, trying to sit up but failing. They will dissect me. My father, he worked with the Directorate. That is why he cut me. He was trying to extract the power. I looked at Varys. He was already reaching for a button under his desk, a silent alarm. Don't do it, Varys, I said. I have to, Ronin, Varys yelled, his desperation showing. If I let her go, and they find out she was here, they'll kill me. They'll burn this whole station. He slammed his hand on the button. Red lights began to flash in the hallway. Sirens wailed. Security to Med Bay, a computerized voice announced. Biohazard containment protocol initiated. I looked at Elara. She was terrified. Can you move at all? I asked her. No, she sobbed. I am sorry, Ronin. Leave me. Save yourself. I looked at the door. I could hear heavy boots running down the corridor. Security droids, probably armed with stun batons and plasma rifles. I looked back at Varys. He was cowering behind his desk, holding a scalpel like a weapon. You idiot, I muttered. I turned to Elara. I scooped her up in my arms again. She felt fragile, but now I knew the truth. I wasn't holding a broken girl. I was holding a nuclear bomb that didn't know how to tick. Hold on tight, I told her. Ronin, there are too many of them, she cried. I don't care, I said. Nobody touches my crew. I kicked the instrument table over, creating a barricade. I drew my heavy pistol. The door burst open. 3 security droids filled the frame, their red optical sensors locking onto us. Surrender the specimen, the lead droid droned. I looked down at Elara. Her face was buried in my chest, her body shaking. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone against the whole world. It means protecting the weak even when it costs you everything. If you believe that honor is more than just a word, then you know exactly what I had to do next. I raised my pistol. Come and get her, I growled. The air exploded with plasma fire. I ducked behind the overturned metal table, shielding Elara with my body. The smell of ozone and burnt plastic filled the small clinic. Zing, zing, zing. 3 shots hit the table right above my head, heating the metal until it glowed red. Ronin! Elara screamed against my chest armor. They will kill you! Give me to them! Quiet! I snapped, checking the charge on my heavy pistol. I didn't carry you halfway across the galaxy to hand you over to a bunch of glorified toasters. I peeked over the edge. The droids were advancing. They were heavy units, enforcer models, thick plating, rapid-fire blasters. They marched in unison, their mechanical feet clanking on the metal floor. Behind them, Dr. Varys was cowering near the door, shouting orders. Don't damage the girl, she's worth millions. Aim for the big brute, aim for the head. I felt a surge of pure rage. Varys, a man who had sworn an oath to heal, now ordering an execution for a paycheck. There is a special circle of hell for men who betray trust for money. I've seen it 1,000 times in war. The coward always hides behind the machine. But machines have a weakness. They don't have a soul, and they don't have anything to lose. Hold on, I told Elara. I stood up. I didn't aim. I just fired. Boom, boom, 2 shots. The first round hit the lead droid and its optical sensor. It sparked and stumbled back, firing blindly into the ceiling. The second round hit a power conduit on the wall next to them. Steam and sparks erupted, blinding the other 2 for a second. Now, I grunted. I scooped Elara up with my left arm, keeping my pistol raised in my right. I ran. My boots slammed against the deck plates. I burst through the back door of the examination room into the maintenance corridor. It was dark, smelling of oil and rust. The hangar is this way, I panted, turning left. Ronin. Elara's voice was weak. Your arm. I looked down. A stray plasma bolt had grazed my shoulder pauldron. The armor was melted, and I could feel the burn on my skin underneath. It's nothing, I lied. Just a scratch. We reached the main concourse leading to the docking clamps. The Iron Mule was there. I could see her rusty hull through the viewport. Safety. But standing between us and my ship was a blast door, and it was closing. Varys had overridden the station controls. No, I yelled, putting on a burst of speed. Too late. The heavy blast door slammed shut with a deafening thud, sealing us off from the hangar. I skidded to a halt. We were trapped. Behind us in the corridor, I heard the heavy footsteps of the enforcer droids. They had regrouped, and now there were more of them. I looked around. No other exits. Just the sealed blast door and the approaching death squad. I gently set Elara down on a crate near the wall. I checked my pistol. Low charge, maybe 4 shots left. Listen to me, I said, kneeling in front of her. When they come around that corner, I'm going to draw their fire. I want you to crawl into that ventilation shaft. I pointed to a small grate near the floor. "No," she wept, her violet eyes wide with terror. "I cannot move my legs, Ronin. I am a burden. I have always been a burden." "You are not a burden," I shouted, grabbing her shoulders. "You are alive. Now act like it." Before she could answer, the droids appeared at the end of the hall, 5 of them, and behind them Varys holding a datapad looking smug. "Give it up, Ronin," Varys called out, his voice echoing. "You're trapped. Hand over the specimen and I might let you live. I'll even patch up that shoulder." I stood up and placed myself between Elara and the droids. "Go to hell, Varys," I spat. "Have it your way," Varys sneered. "Fire." The droids raised their weapons. Time seemed to slow down. I knew I couldn't take 5 enforcers, not with a low battery, not with a melted shoulder. This was it. This was the end of the line for an old soldier. I looked back at Elara one last time. "Close your eyes, kid," I whispered. I raised my gun, but she didn't close her eyes. Instead, she looked at me, and in that moment something changed. The fear in her violet eyes vanished, replaced by a deep ancient sorrow, and then anger. "No," she whispered. The air in the corridor suddenly grew heavy. The hairs on my arms stood up. I smelled ozone, stronger than before. "No!" Elara screamed. It wasn't a scream of pain, it was a command. A wave of blue light erupted from her body. It wasn't magic. It was bioelectricity, raw and uncontrolled. It surged out of her paralyzed legs, up her spine, and exploded outward like a shockwave. The blast hit me, but it didn't hurt. It felt warm, protective. But when it hit the droids, it was devastation. The lead enforcer froze. Its lights flickered from red to dead black. Then its head exploded in a shower of sparks. The other 4 droids began to convulse. The energy wave fried their circuits instantly. They twitched, smoked, and collapsed into a pile of useless scrap metal. The lights in the entire corridor blew out, plunging us into darkness, lit only by the glowing blue aura surrounding Elara. She wasn't sitting on the crate anymore. She was floating, just an inch or two, suspended by the sheer force of the energy pouring out of her. Her hair was floating around her face like a halo. Varys stood alone in the dark. His datapad had exploded in his hand. He was staring at Elara with his mouth open. Elara lowered herself back onto the crate. The glow faded, but her eyes were burning with a power that made my blood run cold. She looked at Varys. "You called me a specimen," she said. Her voice echoed, sounding like 2 people speaking at once. "You wanted to cut me open to see what makes me special." Varys began to shake. He dropped to his knees. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a primal terror. I didn't know," Varys stammered. "The markings, the energy. You are Aethelgard. You are royalty. I am not a thing to be sold," Elara said softly. Varys scrambled forward on his knees, pressing his forehead against the dirty metal floor. He was sobbing now. "Forgive me, High One, forgive me. I am a worm. I am nothing. Please spare me. I will serve you. I will give you the station. Anything." The doctor bowed before her in fear, total abject fear. He wasn't looking at a paralyzed girl anymore. He was looking at a god. Elara looked at him, then she looked at me. The glow left her eyes. She slumped forward, exhausted. "Ronin?" she whispered. I stepped forward and caught her before she fell. I looked down at Varys, who was still groveling on the floor, too terrified to look up. "Get up, Varys," I said. He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Please, don't let her kill me." "She's not going to kill you," I said, holstering my pistol. "Because unlike you, she has mercy." I walked over to the blast door control panel. It was fried, but I forced the manual release. With a groan of metal, the doors slid open. I carried Elara into the hangar. "Ronin?" she mumbled against my chest as we walked up the ramp of the Iron Mule. Did I do that?" "Yeah, kid," I said, a small smile cracking my scarred face. "You did that." "My legs?" she said sleepily. "I felt them. For a second, when the energy came out, I felt them burn. "That's good," I said. "Pain means the nerves are still there. Pain means we can work with it." I laid her down on the bunk in the ship's quarters. She was asleep before her head hit the pillow. I went to the cockpit and fired up the engines. As the Iron Mule detached from the station and drifted into the star-filled void, I looked at the security feed. Varys was still in the corridor, sitting amidst the destroyed droids, staring at his hands. He would never forget this day. He would tell the story in whispers in the darkest bars of the sector, the story of the broken girl who brought a doctor to his knees. I engaged the hyperdrive. The stars stretched into lines of light. I sat back in my pilot's chair and touched the melted spot on my armor. She had saved me. The burden had saved the soldier. Life has a funny way of surprising you. You think you're the one doing the rescuing, but sometimes you're the one being saved. It doesn't matter if you can walk, run, or fly. What matters is the fire inside you. And if you have that fire, nobody, not a doctor, not a king, not an army, can ever keep you down. If you would have stood by Elara's side when the whole world turned against her, then you're part of this crew. Welcome aboard. End.